I have my graduate degree in journalism from Stanford University. I've worked as a journalist with the New York Times, Washington Post, and as a documentary filmmaker with National Geographic. I am an example of who the newly elected president of the United States considers an enemy of the people. In this video, I'm going to share why we need documentary filmmakers and journalists now more than ever, and the 3 values we should all focus on in this era of disinformation and polarization. Now, I have no real incentive to make this video. For a small creator like me, unless your niche is politics, there is pretty much only downside to talking about politics. But the day after the election, I was out on a trail run and found myself thinking a lot about how we as documentary filmmakers and journalists fit into this current political moment. And I came away feeling even more fired up about this career choice than I was before. So whether you are happy about the recent election, upset, or don't care at all, I'm here to make the case as to why it's worth pursuing a life as a nonfiction filmmaker or video journalist, now more than ever. Okay, we're gonna start with the 3 whys, and then we'll get to the principles that should guide your how. Let's start with the intellectual why. Truth is inconvenient. As documentarians, our job is to investigate, to ask questions, to consider multiple perspectives, to go beneath the surface. Our job is to hold up a mirror to the world, to shine a spotlight on critical issues, showing people what they might not otherwise want to see. Our job is to pursue, document, and convey truth, even though, as I will argue in just a moment, truth is not convenient. This is so crucial because for democracy to work, we need society to align on basic truths. We need trust in our institutions. And yet, here we are, in a moment in which the American people just elected someone who, during his first 4 years in the White House, lied or made misleading statements more than 30,000 times, according to the Washington Post. Someone whose first run for political office began with a birther lie, and whose latest run in politics was grounded in an election fraud lie. I say all of this to illustrate how convenient it is to not tell the truth. I mean, look around, whether it's politics or on social media where disinformation spreads 6 times faster than facts. Evidence reveals that the more we lean into fiction, the more we are rewarded with power and influence. And it has always been this way. From the religious doctrines of ancient times to Putin's war in Ukraine today, humans have always used the same process to acquire power. Create a compelling story, get people to believe it, and then organize around it. On the other hand, let's look at the truth. If you're a documentary filmmaker or a journalist out there, you know how difficult it can be to get to the truth of an issue. It's expensive, it takes a ton of time, we have to talk to different people, verify sources, uncover our biases, and the truth is usually complicated, it's nuanced, it's usually not something that fits neatly into a campaign slogan or a 60-second TikTok. As the historian Yuval Noah Harari puts it, as a species, humans prefer power to truth. We spend far more time and effort on trying to control the world than on trying to understand it. If you're a documentarian, if you're a journalist, I believe it's your responsibility to flip that around, to prefer truth over power, to spend more time and effort to understand the world rather than control it. None of us are free of biases and mistakes, but we need to make an honest effort to find out the truth. All right, that brings me to the emotional why, which is connection. Whether it is Trump in the US, Orban in Hungary, or Erdogan in Turkey, more and more politicians are using language that dehumanizes entire groups of people. They create an us versus them narrative. Now, why would that be? Well, I think it goes back to the power of stories. Stories that have a clear hero and a clear villain are easier to understand. A story that is easier to understand is also easier to believe and to organize around. And as we just discussed, that's how people acquire power. The us versus them mentality is also effective because evolution has made us very attuned to threats outside of our tribe. When things in the tribe were all good, we didn't need to be on alert. But when a lion is nearby, it was all systems go for the fight. So that's why politicians use fear and anger towards outsiders as the primary story and tool for motivating voters. And that's why America is increasingly polarized and disconnected. That's where I believe that we as documentary filmmakers have a huge opportunity and responsibility to use storytelling to help people connect and have empathy for each other. To use storytelling to make viewers see that the person they see as them actually is a lot more us than it appears on the surface. At the heart of every great documentary is the power of personal stories. We take complex global issues, whether it's poverty, climate change, racial injustice, and we make them personal. And through the lens of one person's story, we can feel their struggles, their triumphs, their heartbreaks, and we can relate to them, no matter what their political ideology. And that's how empathy is built, not by statistics or headlines, but by seeing and understanding another person's humanity. This emotional connection can break down barriers and create understanding between people from different backgrounds, beliefs, and perspectives. Documentaries can bring us closer together. And for our last why, we have the societal why: defending democracy. Trump, taking a page out of the 20th century dictatorial playbooks of Stalin and Mao, often calls journalists the enemy of the people. It's an attempt to sow distrust in the media. Now, why would he want to do that? Well, because one of journalism's main jobs is to hold those in power, like him, accountable. We do that by reporting facts, and sometimes those facts reveal that an individual is abusing their power. Journalism's role in society is to continue to report the truth and present our findings so that citizens can make informed decisions about how to hold those powerful figures accountable. Calling us the enemy of the people is corrosive because journalism doesn't have formal power. We can't sentence anyone. Our power is only as strong as the level of trust that society puts in us. We're only capable of holding politicians accountable if society trusts the information we present. Thankfully, our founding fathers knew how important this was. They considered the press so important to freedom that they put protection for journalists into the Constitution's First Amendment. We as documentary filmmakers, as journalists, we have a critical role to play in defending democracy. In a time where trust in institutions and media is eroding, we must be the bridge to bring facts back into focus. We are the eyes and ears of the people, investigating what matters and holding power to account. We may not always be celebrated for this work, but it's crucial. We don't just tell stories. We safeguard democracy by keeping people informed and connected to the truth. All right, so those are the 3 reasons why our craft is so important. Now let's get to the 3 hows. And by how, I mean how we tell stories and the 3 values we should all focus on while creating documentaries. And the reason that this is important to talk about is because most of us don't work for a news organization that has a code of ethics or a style book with policies dictating what you should do and what you shouldn't do. It's up to us as individual filmmakers to navigate our way through ethical dilemmas. In that context, I offer up these 3 values that I use to anchor my work. The first is integrity. Honor people's experiences and be committed to telling the truth, even when it's challenging or inconvenient. Don't distort, don't sensationalize, honor the complexity of the world and honor the complexity of the participants and their lives who we are filming. The second value is transparency. Be open about your intentions, biases, and your filmmaking process. This helps our subjects and viewers understand the ethical choices behind our films. And the third value is respect. Treat your subjects' stories with care and dignity. Don't distort their experiences to fit a narrative. Get informed consent. Make sure your subjects understand how their stories are going to be used. Be mindful of the impact that telling their story may have on their lives. And also respect your audience. And you can do that by looping back to the values 1 and 2, telling stories with integrity and transparency. All right, let me know in the comments, does this all resonate with you? What did I get wrong? What did I miss? Yeah, I love having these conversations with you all, and I'm just curious to get your take. I'll see you next week for a video on how to land your first documentary job. And until then, go out and tell some stories.